What's going on, guys? Welcome back. This is Stefan here from App Stuff, and this is the ultimate SwiftUI bootcamp. Thanks for joining me. In this video, we're going to be going over something called control flow. So what do I mean by that? Let me show you guys an example. In the simulator I have open here, I'm going to click Enable Dark Mode, and then that changes the appearance of my screen. So basically what that's doing is this dark mode is on property, gets changed, and then stuff on our screen changes. We're going to be going over how to do that in this video. It's an extremely important part of building user interfaces in any sort of application. You want to show certain things under certain conditions, and that's what we're going to be doing in this video. Another example is you see this subtitle label here, push notifications enabled. If I turn notifications off, that disappears right there. So let's go ahead and get started with this video, guys. So we're going to go ahead and create a new file. It's going to be a SwiftUI view, and we're going to call this control flow tutorial. All right, so we got our preview up and running. So let's go ahead and start building out this screen, guys. So this is really similar to what you would have in a settings page for any application. So this will give you guys an idea of how to build that. So we're going to first add a text property. It's going to say settings. We're going to say .font is .large title. .font weight is .semi-bold. And let's go ahead and give this an alignment of leading, guys. It's not going to do anything right now, but once we build out the rest of the screen and the frame of our VStack expands, it's going to shove this over to the left. So let's keep going. We're going to create another VStack here for sort of this section. So we're going to say text appearance .font is .headline. And you guys see how that's sort of shoving it over to the leading edge because of this alignment here. Now we're going to create this guy right here. So we're actually going to create this toggle, guys, and that's what this is right here. And open up your parentheses. We're going to use this constructor here. It displays a toggle that displays a custom label. So this is our toggle, and this is sort of our custom label here. So we're going to select that option, and you guys notice this asks us for some sort of binding Boolean property. So basically what we need to do is create a state property. So we're going to say state var dark mode enabled equals false. And then I'm going to pass that in here, dark mode enabled. So basically, guys, this is a state property that's going to keep track of whether or not this switch is on or off. So every time we click that switch on or off, it's going to modify this state property, and we're going to use that state property to configure our view with the correct attributes and components. So let's keep going. Now here's where we can add our custom label. We're going to say image system name moon.circle.fill, and then I'm going to give it a font of .title2, and then I'm going to say .image scale .medium. And let's hit resume up here, and you guys are going to notice this toggle switch coming up with our moon image right there. Let's hit try again. Sometimes the preview is a little nasty, and you guys can see that coming up beautifully. So our settings now aligned to the left, and once again, guys, the reason for that is because this caused the frame of our VStack to expand. So now on the leading edge is towards the edge of the screen, which is why settings appeared over there. If we want appearance over there as well, we just go ahead and add an alignment of leading to this one as well, and that's looking really good. Now what we want to do is get this really beautiful background here to sort of indicate to the user that this is like its own individual option or row. So really quickly though, let's go ahead and add our text. We're going to say enable dark mode, and we're going to give it a font of .title, .sub headline, and that looks pretty good. And then, guys, we're going to give this some padding really quickly. So let's go ahead and add a padding modifier on this VStack. Right, so that looks pretty good. And let's go ahead and add one on the settings text as well, just to space everything out nicely. So that looks really good. Now we want to add like a background to this, like this really nice gray rounded rectangular background. So let's go ahead and on this toggle, you're going to say .frame height is 44, and then you're going to say .background is color .system grouped background. And you guys notice that gives it a background of that nice gray color there. Before the frame, guys, go ahead and say .padding .horizontal. So that looks really good. And now we're just going to go ahead and apply a corner radius of 10. So that looks great, right? So now let's go ahead and just give this whole view a background. One of the easiest ways to do that, for example, if you guys noticed, we could do that two ways. One, I could apply a spacer to this thing and to this whole VStack and move everything up to the top. And then on this VStack, I could just say .background is color, let's say .red, just to see it taking shape. And that looks really good, right? So that's our background color. Obviously, guys, we're going to want to modify this background color based on this state property. And we're also going to want to modify the settings text color, the appearance text color, and also the background of this row option, right? So all that stuff is going to change when we change the state property of dark mode enabled here. So you guys will notice that every time I switch this on or off, that toggles this property between true and false. So I forgot to mention, guys, this is what's known as a Boolean property, and a Boolean property can only have one of two values, true or false. So that's really helpful when we want to introduce what's known as control flow in our program. We want to say, hey, if this condition is true, then do this stuff, or make the background color this color, or make this text show up. Else, that means it's false, then do this. So that's what we're going to go over how to do right now. So basically, let's go ahead and create something called a computed property. So I'm going to go ahead here and say var background color. This does not have to be a state property, and I'll go over why. And it's going to be a color. And this is going to be our first if statement that we've done in this tutorial. We're going to say if dark mode enabled and else. And sorry, open up some brackets there, guys, and then say else. So this is how you introduce what's known as control flow or a conditional statement in your program. So this is saying, hey, if dark mode is on, then everything we write in this block of code is going to get executed when the dark mode is on. Else, that means dark mode is off. So then we're going to, want to change the background color to white and make the text color black and stuff like that. So, but for now, this is just a property to help us figure out the background color of our application. So we need to return something. So we're going to say, hey, if dark mode is enabled, return .black. Else, return .white. So now, instead of this background with color .red, we're going to replace that property there with our background color property, and we're going to hit resume. So now you guys will notice that when I do this, it changes the whole screen to black, which is really, really cool, right? That means this is working. So let me just go over exactly how that works before we continue and all of the different ways we can implement control flow in the application. So basically, guys, this is what's known as a computed property. So it's saying, hey, this is some background color variable, and this is the type of this variable, right? It's going to be a color. This could be a string, and we would have to return a string. It could be a Boolean, it could be a color, it could be a number, doesn't matter. So basically, it's just saying, hey, here's a property that we want to compute based on this state property up here. So every time this state property changes, it's going to give us back a different value based on the control flow that we introduced. So when dark mode enabled is true, meaning right now, it's going to say, it's going to hit this if block, right? And it's going to say, hey, dark mode is enabled, so background color is black. When it's off, it's going to say, okay, hey, we're using this background color to configure the view somewhere all the way down here. So now I notice that if dark mode enabled is not true, so it hits the else block, right? And then it gives us back white. So that's one way of introducing some control flow into your app. Let's go ahead and add another if statement into our view body to see how we can add some different ways of doing this. So for example, on this settings text, guys, go ahead and highlight that and hit Command X to cut it. So I'm going to say if dark mode enabled, and then else. So we're going to just paste in that text in both situations, but we're going to change the background color, or the foreground color, sorry, of that text. So if dark mode is not enabled, I want the foreground color to be black. If dark mode is enabled, I want the foreground color to be white. So now let's go ahead and turn this on, and you guys will notice that our settings guy has the correct foreground color now. So once again, let's go over how this works. So dark mode enable gets changed. It's a state property. So our view recognizes that, hey, this state property is being used right here. So I need to figure this stuff out again once this state property changes. Now we've introduced some control flow or some conditional statements, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter, it's the same thing. And it's saying, hey, if dark mode enabled is true, I want this stuff. Right? If it's not true, if it's off, I want this stuff. The only difference here is the foreground color though. So a little bit later on in this video, we're going to go over how to clean this up a little bit, because this is obviously kind of messy and we're repeating a lot of code unnecessarily, right? The only thing we need to change is the background color. The foreground color. So we're going to go over how to do that. But let's keep going, guys. So another thing we want to change is the foreground color here. We are going to change this and this to have, some cooler colors, and then we're going to change the background color of this guy as well. So let's go over how to do that shorthand notation right now, actually. And then we'll keep going with this stuff. But the whole point of this video is to just get you guys used to this conditional statement stuff, but we are going to be building this stuff a little bit later in the video. So now what we want to do is change the background color of this and the text color of this, and appearance as well. So instead of having to cut this, guys, and say if dark mode enabled, else, and then saying text appearance dot font, pretty much exactly what we did here, there is a much shorter way of writing this, and I'm going to show it to you right now. So we're going to say text appearance, just like we had before. Dot font is dot headline. Then we're going to say dot foreground color, and we're going to say dark mode enabled, and then you're going to add a question mark. You're going to say color dot white, no color dot black. So you guys are probably like, what the hell is this? So this is something called a ternary statement, guys, and basically it just shortens an if-else statement into one line of code. So I'm going to add some comments up here. So ternary statement, you can say for this background color, I'm going to shorten this if-else statement to one line of code using a ternary statement. So I'm going to say return dark mode enabled, yes, dot black, no, dot white. So this is the same exact thing as this. So let me just go ahead and comment this out, add some more comments here. So I'm going to say same exact thing as if statement, and let's go ahead and break it down real quick. So what comes after the question mark, right, is the success case. What comes after the colon is failure case. So what exactly does this mean? So basically we're saying, hey, if dark mode is enabled, this is if dark mode is enabled is true, then we give back black. Else is what comes after this colon right here, then we give back white. So this is basically the if condition, and this is the else condition. So we're going to do this in a couple more places just to get you guys used to this. So let's go ahead and comment this stuff out and see if we can accomplish the same thing that we had using a ternary statement. So let's go ahead and copy this settings text paste it right there. And all we want to do is change the foreground color. So we want to say dark mode enabled, yes, color.white, no, color.black. So now when I change this guy, you guys can see that it's achieving the exact same effect using significantly less code. So this is extremely common in SwiftUI, right? You're going to see these ternary statements used over and over and over again, because oftentimes you just want to change one property about a view component based on some certain condition. In this case, that property is this dark mode enabled value. So you guys can see that if we just wanted to use the if else stuff, we have to create the text property multiple times just so that we can change one attribute, which is the foreground color, which makes no sense, right? That's not very efficient. Imagine if this text property was some really complex view. Like, for example, imagine if we had to do that on this entire V stack. Create the whole thing and then put that in an if statement and then put the whole thing again in an else statement just to change the background color. That makes no sense, right? Very inefficient. So this is a much more efficient way of accomplishing the same thing. Let's go ahead and see if we can add this ternary statement to some other places in the code. So we want it right here as well. So we're going to say dot foreground color, dark mode enabled, yes, color.white, no, color.black. And guys, it's also 100% acceptable to use this computed property in these places as well. I'm just showing you the use of these ternary statements here. So once again, guys, that's actually white text now. We just want to go ahead and change the background of this as well. So let's go ahead here and let's actually just create another computed property. We could say var row background color is a color, and then you open up some brackets. So guys, once again, this is a computed property and it's just going to help us figure out the row background color based on this dark mode enabled property. So I could go ahead and just say return dark mode enabled, yes, color.system grouped background, no, and let's say color.white.opacity 0.1. And yep, that looks good. And you guys are going to see how this works in just a second. So let's actually go ahead and replace this background down here with row background color and hit resume. And let's see, change that. Oop, not working yet. Let's see, dark mode enabled, yes. Okay, I mixed that up. So when the dark mode is enabled, we want that white color, and then when it's not, we want color.system grouped background. So just switch that up, guys. So this is, once again, the success case, meaning if our condition is true, whatever comes after that question mark, that's going to be our success case. Whatever comes after the colon is going to be our failure case, or what happens in the else block. So let's go back down here and it should be good now. And you guys notice that that's looking really, really good, right? It looks just like what we have in the completed version. Let's just go ahead and change the background color or the tint color of these items right here. So here we're going to say dot foreground color is just dot blue, and that's going to stay the same no matter what. And then on our switch, guys, go to the end of it after this corner radius and say dot toggle style. And then you're just going to say toggle style tint dot blue. I think that's it. Let me make sure. Okay, sorry, it's switch toggle style. Okay, 1 second. Sorry guys, I botched that. There we go. Switch toggle style dot blue. So now when you guys turn the switch on, that's how you sort of customize that switch right there. All right guys, so let's continue on. That's sort of the basics of the control flow. We're going to see how this is used in a bunch of other examples throughout the bootcamp. Like I said before, it's a very commonly used concept in SwiftUI and programming in general when you're building user interfaces. Let's just keep going and build the rest of this stuff, and we're going to go over how to implement that little nice subtitle label that we see there. So let's go ahead and just create another VStack. We're going to copy this text right here for the appearance, and we're just going to go ahead and replace that with account. It's going to have all the correct coloring configured. Let's see. Stop the there we go. And once again, just say padding on that guy. Let's see. Preview's being slow. There we go. It's working now. All right, now let's go over how we can get like sort of two options in there. We're going to create another VStack, and then we're going to copy this toggle that we have. So let's copy that. Let's add a divider and paste it in there again. So that looks pretty good. We are going to modify this, however, though, guys. You guys can see that it doesn't look exactly how we have it here. And that's because we're applying the background color to individual items as opposed to the entire VStack here. So let's go ahead and fix that. So I'm going to remove this corner radius guy. We don't need that from each one. And then the background, I'm going to place that on the VStack instead. And you guys will notice that that fixes that. But now we need to round out the edges. So we're just going to go here and say .corner radius is 10. And that's going to make it look exactly how we want. And then let's see. This is that toggle. I think that looks good. Height 44, background. We don't need the background anymore on that. Padding frame. Yep. Padding frame. Okay, so that's looking really good, guys. Now let's go over how we can add other state properties so that we link these options to their own individual state properties. So we're just going to go back up to the top and create some other state properties. So I'm going to say @state var notifications enabled equals false, and @state var face ID enabled equals false. Okay, so the reason we have to do this, guys, is because you guys will notice that if I use the same state property for all of these options, it's going to treat each one of these as the same as the enable dark mode option. So for example, if I click this on, it's going to turn all of them on, right? And we don't want that. We want each one to be linked to its own individual option. That's right. So what I need to do is for the notifications option, so let's make this guy say notifications, and then let's change this to bell.circle.fill, and then let's change this really quickly to what's it called? Enable face ID. And we're going to change this guy to, I think it's literally just face ID. Yep. So that looks really good now. And now for the toggle, we can't pass in the dark mode enabled property to these other options. We have to pass in these newly created state properties into those toggles. So go down here, and for this guy, we're going to say $ notifications enabled, and for this guy, we're going to say $ face ID enabled. All right, so now let's go ahead and just fix the alignment on that. So say alignment is .leading. So that looks great. And now what we're going to do, guys, is add this subtitle label in. So we only want to add that in under a certain condition, right? We only want to say if notifications is on, then we want push notifications enabled. And you guys notice in the completed app that when I turn notifications on, it doesn't affect the dark mode at all. When I change the dark mode, it doesn't affect my notifications at all. And once again, that is because we have individual state properties for each one of these options, which is the best way to do that. Okay, so basically, guys, on this text here, we're going to wrap it inside of a VStack. So go ahead and command click on it, say embed in VStack. Then we're going to add another text component. We're going to say push notifications enabled. And then we're going to give it a font of .caption and a foreground color of .gray. And you guys are going to notice that it's there right now, and it's always there no matter what, right? So we want to add some sort of condition on when to show that thing. So all you have to do is take this, say cut it with Command X, and you're going to say if notifications enabled, then we're going to put that in there. So this is a way to sort of drop an if statement into your code when you're configuring the view. And now you guys will notice that when I do that, that shows up beautifully there. We just need to change the alignment of this. So on this VStack, once again, all you're going to do is say alignment dot leading, and that's going to change that for us, right? So now when I do that, oops, wrong one. Do that on this VStack. Come on, man. There we go. Alrighty. Now I do that, and now that's looking absolutely gorgeous, guys. So really quickly, you guys might be wondering, hey, you don't have an else statement here. And that's because you don't always need an else statement, right? It's just like, hey, do all this stuff no matter what, right? But only if this thing is true do we want to add this text. There's not really an else condition needed here, right? Because we want this stuff no matter what all the time, right? So we want it to be this way all the time. There's no if condition needed. The only time we want to add something different is when we have notifications enabled. We want to add something down below. So that's the only time we need to do that. We don't really need an else statement there. So it is up to you guys to be able to figure out when and when not to use else statements in your sort of conditional statements as we see here. But like I said before, we're going to get tons of practice with conditional stuff throughout the bootcamp, so don't worry about it. There's a ton of other cool places we're going to implement some of this conditional statements. For example, in the Instagram profile, where was that? I forget where that was. Let me see. Search for follow. Right. So in this Instagram profile guy, for example, as homework, you guys could try to make it so that if I hit this following guy, that I modify some Boolean property, some state property saying like, hey, is followed. And if we're following them, then we change the text to following. If we're not following them, we change the text to follow. So that's another example of something that we're going to be doing in the course, but I think you guys should try to do it as like sort of a homework assignment. But anyway, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this video. This is looking super smooth. Let me go ahead and bring this back up just to make sure everything is working. Right, so we can change that, we can change that. We're not really gonna do anything with this enable face ID. But yeah, that's looking really, really good. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Peace.